Hello, good morning. Day 10, June 21st. Good morning. Um, had a interesting conversation last night. We had a reading for one of the classes, one of our final classes, and it was actually about authenticity and authenticity in like corporate and executive spaces. And the reading was kind of saying how like authenticity is overrated and that maybe like there's elements of it that you need to hide or mask when you're working in certain positions. And I thought that it was interesting because my whole thing is authenticity is the operating mode. Like this is where you want to be fully yourself, to be fully aligned, to live um, a fulfilled life, to live to the max. And I can understand the idea that in certain cultures, um, uh, in certain work cultures, it may not be completely acceptable to be yourself. And I think that there's a lot of layers to that. I don't think it's necessarily as simple as like somebody is being themselves or is not being themselves, because it's sometimes difficult to know what being yourself actually means. I think that if I were to look at it from a human design lens, the easiest way of explaining this is you as an individual have a specific design, one that's unique to you. Only you can live that design. And as part of that design, there are places where your body energetics, your body graph, has openness. It has open, not open, it's undefined. So what that means is it can receive energy, and in those spaces, the open energy centers or the undefined energy centers, we can take on conditioning. So I think that when we look at people and do our best to try and decide whether they're authentic or not, there's also the question, there's two questions, I think. One is, are they living fully as themselves? So in human design kind of framing, it would be, are you living your design? And then the other question is, if you're not doing that, it's like, what are you operating from? And that could be conditioning. That could be like mental kind of modes of like, I think I need to be this or I think I need to be that. And you're trying to be something that you're not. So with those two layers, it's oftentimes that people have difficulty showing up as themselves in different spaces because there's things that they think that they need to do, think that they should be doing, um, and that type of like kind of like I need to put on masks and disguises to show up in a place where I spend most of my time to do, to earn my living so that I can have a roof over my head and food in the fridge. So looking at it from that perspective and thinking about the idea that authenticity is overrated, I think that authenticity is poorly understood. I don't know that there's many people. I'm sure there are people out there, like really great mentors and coaches and therapists and counselors that can see you for who you are and help reflect that back to you so that you can begin to see yourself in that way and operate from that space. And then there's a lot of people who are just trying to figure it out, right? And it's tough because we have, as individuals, like I lived my life up until this point. I did a whole bunch of things. I did some things that worked for me, and I did some things that didn't work well for me. And I could tell you exactly what I did, but that's not your lived experience. That's not your life. And because it's not your experience, my tips and suggestions, if I tell you like I did this so you should do that too, it might not match one to one. What I do know is that there are principles and foundational kind of like things that are common to our human experience and certain rules, not even rules, maybe more certain principles that help to make sense of everything that's going on. So you can then take that information and use it for yourself. And with that information, for example, looking at your human design, one of the biggest shifts for me was understanding my projector nature, because it's different than the generator types, the generators manifesting generators. It's different than the manifestors or the reflector types. And even though in human design there are 5 broad types, there's a lot of flavor in the charts as well. I'm sure eventually I'll do a video where I'll have like a human design chart up and you kind of look through, and I'll go through all of that. Um, I've done that before. I can do it again. I will do it again. But really, the part of it, of authenticity to understand, is always checking in with yourself to see if you are operating from a place of authenticity. And the great thing then about human design is that it gives you a compass or a meter stick or something to feel in to what it means to be aligned with your design. And that comes into you expressing or feeling your signature theme versus your not self theme. And the easiest combo, like the really great thing about human design, is to practice your strategy and authority. Using your strategy to identify opportunities that were meant for you, and then using your authority to decide whether you are responding yes or no to those opportunities. And this is how you make decisions. Strategy and authority often is taught in a way where you're using it for large life decisions: where to live, where to work, partner, who to partner with, in relationships and things like that. And that's where it's most important, because these things like affect many, many things. At the same time, if you kind of expand that and just apply that to the idea that you're always making decisions to make aligned decisions, you can always follow your strategy and authority. And then after you followed your strategy and authority, then you're checking in with your signature and your not self. You're like, am I in my signature mode or am I in my not self mode? I think at some point I had come up with some terms for that, kind of like other ways of thinking about that. And one of the things is, I'm always like, will this information make sense to other people? Like, will people know what a signature is? Will people know what a not self is? And I think there's the kind of general gist of it, and some people might have more questions and all of this. That kind of speaks to like profile lines. Like, there are 6 different profile lines in human design, and they also give more flavor into your experience. So for example, I am a 5-1 splenic projector. That kind of all says my profile themes, my authority, and then my type, my aura type. And the 5-1 is a heretic investigator. So the heretic is meant to, that profile line is kind of meant to take ideas, new ideas, and put them out to the collective. And oftentimes they're kind of heretical because they're different. And really, if you have a 5 line in your chart, then it means you're likely here to do something different. So if you're feeling like you're doing things different, people look at you a little bit like, what are you doing? And that's kind of like a natural vibe for you. The 1 line is the investigator, where it's like looking for more information. So that's kind of the part of where I dive into for myself, all of these like different ways of presenting ideas and framing things. And then that's kind of also kind of magnified by other features in my chart. I probably should go through my chart at some point with all of you. So then I think I did talk about the 1 line in an earlier video. So that 5-1 profile kind of gives you this idea of how you might operate. So if a person has a 1 line, you might think that they would like to have more information before making decisions, or just to get to a place of comfort. Other profile lines, just really quickly, like the 2 line is the hermit. They're kind of like the hidden expert, the person that's like just naturally good at many different things, and kind of doesn't need to be out there all the time, needs to think about their own space to protect their own energy. 3 line is the martyr, which is an interesting name. It's kind of like your, it's a trial and error line. So it's to kind of like learn through doing and not necessarily needing all the information to start. 4 line is the opportunist, and 6 line is the role model. I'm not going to get into them too much, but basically 4 line is one that connects with others and learns through their network and really grows their own one of the ways that they will fully express themselves is when they are part of a community that they can support. And then the 6th line is the role model. It's kind of like harmonic to the 3rd line, where it's really interesting. There's 3 different phases in a 6th line kind of life progression, where your first 28 years, you're kind of trial and error learning for yourself. Then in the middle, like 28 to 50 years old, you're learning from others. So watching others do and learning from them, learning from the lessons they learn, learning from the mistakes that they make along the way. And then in the last, like 50 plus, is when you've got all your information, you're ready to come out as the expert, you show up. And it's really interesting. It's like, what are these 3 phases? And with all of these different things, all the different features of the human design chart, the energetic types, and even the authority, in all my conversations with people about human design, whether through readings, whether through casual conversation, or just impromptu kind of chart readings, like, hey, have you seen your human design chart? If you haven't, you can get it on my website. The link is somewhere, probably on the channel or whatever. I'll probably put it down. I should put it down below in this comment, in the description for this video. And talking about like the human design chart has been really interesting because the information that it reveals for a person is oftentimes so one-to-one, so much. Like, this was my experience of like opening up and like reading through my human design report, and just like reading things. So there's a lot of information that you can get from this chart, but reading the pieces that are like, oh, this is like, this hits as well, this hits as well. Like, how are all of these things so accurate? And the more that I explore the chart, the more that it lands. And the thing that I really love about it is there's all this complexity that you can go into. And at the same time, the strategy, the way of utilizing the information is super simple. It's basically strategy and authority, and test with your signature or your not self theme. That's part of the Haizhen program. One of the early things, the first phase of the Haizhen program is clarity. It's to understand who you are fundamentally, what you came into this world designed to experience, how you were designed to operate. And that's the first module, that's the first phase of Haizhen, which is clarity. And that, as part of that, there's the shore to core experiment, I call, which means you move from the shores of confusion to your core essence. And basically that's just going through life, understanding that life is a series of decisions. You can make the decisions, and the idea is to use your strategy and authority to make that decision. The check-in is to see whether the decision results, whether the decision results in you feeling your signature theme or your not self theme. So for a projector, signature theme is success, which is like flow. It's like effortless action. And then the not self theme is bitterness, feeling like overlooked, not recognized, that type of thing. So when you get your human design chart, like if you look at these 4 features and just kind of take the stance that everything that comes to me, I'm going to filter it through my strategy, utilize my authority to decide yes or no, and understand that I am making decisions about everything. And then utilizing that in a way where you can check back and say, like, am I in my signature? Am I feeling like A+, or am I feeling not so good? Just very quickly, the generator and manifesting generator signature is satisfaction, feeling like when you've done something, done some work, and had made a decision, the result of that decision, you're like, I'm satisfied. This is a good decision. The opposite of that is frustration, which is interesting because like when I learned about empathy through my pharmacy background, one of the empathy statements that we were taught to use was, that must be very frustrating. And because generators are about 70% of the population, so manifesting generators and generators as a combined type, that works, that kind of like language works for a lot of people, because it's like, yeah, when things aren't going your way, frustration is probably the thing that's underlying everything. And it's not to say that you're not experiencing other emotions and other feelings and things like that, but like the frustration is the thing that lies underneath it. For manifestors, the signature theme is peace, and the not self theme is anger. And finally, for the reflector, the signature theme is surprise, and the not self theme is disappointment. And I'll definitely get into those a lot more in depth, but even thinking about those things, if you have your chart in front of you and you're looking at your type and your strategy and your authority, and you're like, does this make sense? Kind of like consider and reflect back. Human design, in addition to telling you a lot about it yourself and giving you the strategy and authority to move through your world, it also gives you an opportunity. It's a really great way of directing your self-reflection. If you read something in your chart and you're like, this matches, then that's really great. It's affirming. If you read something in your chart and you're like, oh, I don't know, then that's a really great question of like thinking of, is there some kind of conditioning there? Because we carry a lot of things as we move through this world. Oftentimes we're carrying a lot. And because of that, we end up in our not-self themes a lot, because we end up operating from things that are not us. So then that piece of self-reflection, when you see you're like, I am this or I am not that, and it doesn't necessarily match, it's not to say like completely discount it. It's also not to say like blindly lean into it. But if you take that pause in the middle and think about it, your life might change. There's so many things that I could get into, like even thinking about the feeling, meaning, action cascade, which is like a way that I interpret or think about how we move through like our interactions, right? Like if you think about it from the base level, your action is tied to some type of feeling. You had some type of input, stimulus. This is like a very mechanical model. You have something that happens, so a cause, and it has an effect. And in between cause and effect, there's the meaning that you assign to it. So then when you're seeing something and it's making you feel a certain way, and it's making you want to take a certain action, it's not to say that you have to take that action or not take that action. If you can think that you have the space in the middle to make some meaning of it, then you can either get clarity and move forward with the action that you thought you wanted to take with congruence, or you could, what's the other option? You could move through with congruence, or you could like pause and consider the meaning that it has for you and say like, how come I'm feeling this way? And where's the miss? Where's the match? Where's the mismatch? Yeah, I think that's these are the types of things that I'll get into over the next while in the videos for the channel proper, because it's like, I think it's so important. It's like such important information, and it's so useful. I find that it's so useful and practical that I'd love to share more with you, right? So in addition to these, when those start to come out, then I'd love to share. And this is all of the different pieces I've kind of like looked through and started to put together in this program called Haizhen, the Haizhen transformation. So that's what I'll be sharing more of. And I think I'm just reflecting now. Like, even making these has helped me start to make things, like be prepared to make more things, to make the, to get ready to film the course proper. There's going to be an online component of it as well. And then also just like making videos for YouTube. It's like, I know that, I have a decent setup. I spent enough time to figure out how to like do this in some kind of easy way. And this has been really good practice. So yeah, It's going to be good times. I'm really enjoying all of this. Yeah. Take some time for yourselves if you haven't in a while. It's important. Even if it's like 5 seconds in the middle of making a video when you want to just zone out. Because if you don't take time for yourself, who will?